All right, hello everyone, and welcome to what would normally be news and notes. There's really not a whole lot to recap and discuss, other than the big subject. It's the elephant in the room. It's what everyone is talking about, and I just wanted to kind of address things and hopefully kind of help us all to kind of coalesce a little bit and gain a bigger understanding of the problem. So, anyway, uh, it, this isn't going to be a rant. This is just some thoughts, observations, and perspective, hopefully. So, yes, the state of the officiating in the FPHL. I'm not going to just come up and say, you know what, officiating sucks, because that's kind of a lazy pattern of thought, and you've got to understand. And I know this is harder, especially for newer fans. Maybe you've only been following hockey for a couple of years, and you just know that there's some stuff going on the ice that should be called and it's not getting called, and you get frustrated and angry, and the referees suck, they don't know what they're doing. Refereeing hockey is probably the most difficult profession in sports, more so hockey than any other sport. Maybe a close second would be football, but because of the speed of the game, the nature of the game, it's a very physical game, and because of a lot of backlash that happens from fans, officiating is extremely hard. It's hard to catch things in real time. And it's also hard to get done officiating a game, and everywhere you look on social media or even mainstream media, on the TV and on the radio and on the internet, everyone is scrutinizing every single thing that you did do and didn't do. Officiating is not for the weak of heart. It's become an extremely difficult position to fill with enough people coming in through the ranks. The older referees are aging out, and newer officials, they'll get into a situation and they just get hammered and screamed at and yelled at, and that they lose the desire to want to do it. So officiating across the board is a problem. Not just in the FPHL, it's on every level. It's on the NHL level. It's on the NBA level. It's on the MLB level and the NFL level. And a big part of the reason why it's becoming so difficult to be an official in professional sports, but again, particularly hockey, is because we all have the benefit of whipping out our phones and taking a quick video and then posting it to social media and see what this idiot didn't call. We have that benefit. We can take a video of something and slow it down frame by frame, and see right there. The officials don't have that luxury. Now, I'm not coming on here to be an officials apologist either, because there has been a very clear diminishment of officiating, the quality of officiating in the league. From last year to this year, I can say, yes, the quality of officiating has gone down this year. Now, one false paradigm that I want to speak against, and again, I get it, we're all passionate about our teams, but there is a very common reaction when people discuss the game that just took place last night, and this official was terrible. He called everything against us, didn't call anything on the other guys. It's always they're against our team. I can tell you with all assuredness that this is a league-wide problem that affects every single team, all 14 teams. I can say there is not one team that can say, the officials are pretty good to us. No, everybody's got a beef, and deservedly so. Now, are there occasions in which officiating is bias? Yes, but they're not that common. We've seen a few games this year. There have been a lot of games that I have watched that I say officiating not the best tonight, but it's not like they were trying to be biased. There have been a couple of occasions in which there was a very clear bias, which is unfortunate. However, I would say, this is just a rough estimation, in the almost 200 games that have been played so far in the Fed this season, you could probably count on both hands the total amount of games that were called from a clearly biased standpoint. In other words, 10 at the most, or probably not even that much. And that's a problem that the league needs to deal with. The league needs to be a lot more accountable to not just fans, but to teams, to players, to owners. They need to be a lot more accountable that, yes, we understand that there was some pretty significant stuff that was missed. We will make sure that these officials continue to get trained, that they are continually given feedback, that they are given direction, that they are, that they know that there's a standard that they need to be held to. And that's just not happening, unfortunately. Everybody, like I said, everybody is saying something. We've even had team owners that have come out and publicly said this wasn't good. Some have done it in a more creative, humorous way, and like, well, that was interesting. And nobody's come right out and said, officials were terrible last night. This is a disgrace. And nobody's gone to that extreme as far as any of the teams, any of the organizations. But there have been some hints dropped. There has also been messages that have been recently offered by Kevin Kupia, for one, in PD, and he's had a conversation with Paul Jean, the director of officiating, and he and Paul Jean had to sit down and just said, look, let's look at things from both sides of the fence, which I do think is important. However, I do think that it's important to caution the league, to caution the executive board, to not get insulated, to not feel like you are not accountable. The integrity of the game, for one, is at stake. More importantly, the safety of the players and for the officials on the ice and for spectators in the arena are at stake. So it behooves you to make sure that there is an aggressive plan put into motion and practiced on a regular basis on how to improve things. Because right now it doesn't pass the optics. And you see it every Monday, or every Sunday, every Monday, you see clip after clip after clip from this fan base, from that fan base, from how did they call this? Why did they call this penalty? Why didn't they call this penalty? How did they miss this? And they're all legitimate claims. But again, we have that luxury as fans to be able to see things and re-see them and re-see them and slow it down and manipulate the speed so that we can clearly see every little thing every split second, whereas the officials don't have that luxury. We do need to be patient. Not only is the FPHL a proving ground, if you will, for players, for coaches, for team executives to try and advance their career, get to the next level. It's also the same for the officials. All right. I'm just throwing a name out there because most everybody who's familiar with hockey knows this name. Wes McCauley, the NHL, the really dramatic official, that always makes the big announcements and adds his little bit of flair to it. He had to go through the paces. He had to go through collegiate training and minor pro training before he got to the NHL. And it took him a long time to get to the NHL. Nobody just, graduates ref school and goes to the NHL. Okay. The Fed refs are learning progressively. And so we need to keep that in mind, and we need to be patient with them. We also need to, let them know in a more constructive way. Look, you could do better. You can do better. Please do better. Without crucifying them. So there is, I guess you could say, a shared responsibility. There's the responsibility for the referees themselves to improve. There's a responsibility for the league, for the executive board, for Paul Jean to help these officials improve. There's a responsibility to us as fans to, not put a guy on a stick just because, he missed a call or two. Again, hockey is a very rough sport. It's a very demanding physically sport. It's also demanding emotionally and just in a lot, and mentally as well. So there is shared responsibilities. A lot of you have messaged me and said, what do you think about this particular incident? What is your opinion? I will tell you, I have not answered most of those, and that is deliberate. I am trying to be as non-biased as possible. I am trying to cover equally all 14 teams. It's pretty self-defeating to say, "Oh yeah, well, this is terrible. He missed it here." then, that one fan base says, see, Fed League Flash sided with us. And then the other fan base gets all upset and irritated. And Fed League Flash is all opinionated and he's so biased. And it's a no-win situation, and that's why I don't answer most of those messages that you send me. And that's going to be my policy. Is just no. I'm sorry. I'm not going there. I acknowledge that you saw this. I acknowledge that this happened, but I'm not going to get pulled into the middle of an argument. So I just want to let you know that's why I have held off on that. But I think it's enough that I can say, yes, I see what all of you are seeing. The officiating is a problem. It needs to improve drastically. It needs to improve relatively quickly. But it doesn't do anyone any good to just beat a dead horse and say, this official is terrible. This official is terrible. This is the worst guy. This guy always, screws us over. Whatever. Again, understand that, the referees, while they're getting paid, and they're probably getting paid better than about half the players in the league, it's still not tons of money. They're not getting rich. Okay, the officials are not getting rich. Paul Jean is not sitting in his counting house and counting out his money. It's just it's not happening. But again, patience is required. Let's find a more creative way, a more constructive way of expressing our opinions, not playing the blame game. The onus is still on the teams and the players. You might have an official that you might be a victim of a biased officiating, a game with a biased officiating, but it's still upon you, the team, to find a way to overcome those obstacles and win the game. All right. The referees do not decide games hardly ever. The percentage of games that were decided by the officials by a mistake or by an omission or by a bad call is razor thin. And that's the truth. That's the truth. It boils down to executing on the ice, performing on the ice, and doing your best and finding a way to win. So, and everyone has that opportunity. All right. So I think I've said all I can really say on this subject, but I wanted to address it because, again, it is very much a hot button topic right now. And I get it. I understand it. I agree with you. But again, it to just continue to go on the way we are going right now doesn't do anybody any good. It's just not beneficial to anyone. So anyway, there we go. All right. Last thing before I close this out, just want to mention, coming up, we do have the expanded Fed Flash face-off coming up. It's going to be less content on Facebook other than just reporting the news. A lot of the features I do on Facebook, those will now be part of these videos. So keep a watch for that. Aiming for 3 weeks. We'll see if that happens. I'll do my best. Okay, so that is it. I am Gary Ryan for the Fed League Flash. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. And also make sure you're following me on Facebook as well. That's where the news gets printed as it happens. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again next time.